Annalieza Landa, and I am in the United Kingdom.
And I'm John Verrico, and I'm in the United States.
And united, we are
the show of values.
Saving the world with values.
One leader at a time. So, Annalieza, here we go. We're finally launching our first episode. I'm very excited about this. We finally got rid of the audio gremlins we were having as we were trying to put together our pieces, and I'm so happy that we are finally here together. And,
yes.
and you know, who said that those darn rebels and redcoats can't get along? Look at us.
Absolutely. I know, it's great. We've been talking about this for a long time, doing something together, and finally here we are.
And and so as we've been talking about this, and I know we've been talking to other people about it and talking it up and saying, hey, we're doing a show about values, and we're getting the same question, right, all the time. What are values and why are they important?
I was asked a number of questions about values by a chap called Andrew on a Super Speakers networking group we both belong to, run by the networking supremo, Mark Jarrett. Mark was awarded Networker of the Year at the Hilton London Olympia in 2022. I'm sure it will answer some questions that our audience have as well. So I'm just going to stick my reading glasses on here because I'm that age, unfortunately. You ask, we answer. Today's questions come from Andrew Miller, founder of Business Enjoyment. Andrew coaches entrepreneurs to rediscover joy in their business. He says he wants you to enjoy your business so much, it makes your bits tingle. Woo! If you need what Andrew's got to offer, then connect with him on LinkedIn. That's Andrew Miller of Business Enjoyment. So he said, I've been playing with the definition of what a value actually is, and I'd be intrigued to hear your position on it. My definition of core values or value is that it is a deeply held principle, belief, or idea that drives our behavior and shapes our reality. In other words, apart from the things that we can't control in life, like, for example, losing somebody we love, being made redundant, diagnosis of illness, etc. Our values determine our choices. They determine our thoughts, our actions, our words, and therefore they determine our outcomes in life as well.
They impact our relationships, or impact our lives, and the way we operate our businesses,
and our leadership, which of course is what this show is all about. Leadership values. He goes on to say that I've heard some people say that values are the things that are most important to you. For example, fairness and trust. Is there work to be done to get clear on what those words actually mean, as they might maybe apply differently to others? 100%. One of the things I do as a coach is help people to define their values. So without that definition, without that contrast, the context, the edges, they are just words on a page, albeit words that resonate with us, that produce some kind of visceral reaction in us. But it's really important that we do define what they mean to us, and that's what makes them unique to us as well, and what helps them to differentiate us, hence the values differentiator.
Values differentiator. That's what I do with my clients as well. I help them to try to reestablish their connection with their own core values, and because so many times we're forced into situations where we're kind of drifting away from those values or changing the way we apply those values. And so it is so important for our happiness and our health and our mental welfare to be able to understand what our values are and how to live to them.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether I'm coaching individuals or working with organizations. There is often a huge disconnect between what people or organizations think their values are, but what is actually being lived out and modeled. And so often people think they know their values, but when they really look at their actions and how they're showing up in the world, world. They discover that their values are actually very different, and it's very profound. People will say, wow, I really didn't realize this. And then certain things start to become clear, because that's what knowing our values does. When we get to know our values, we're getting to know ourselves, and they give us clarity.
And that's really what we need in order to be able to function. And so, when we come across things that kind of go against our values, or we don't even realize it because we're not in touch with our own values, or we've lost track of our own values, it does cause an inner turmoil and conflicts within us. And then we start behaving differently.
Our values, once we know them, actually help us to negotiate conflicts and to navigate through really very difficult choices. Our sat nav, if you want to put it in modern terms.
Yes.
Yeah. So just finishing off what Andrew asked, because it's quite a long and interesting message that he sent. He said that I've also heard people say that if the opposite is not a value, then the thing itself isn't, i.e., I might put on my website that fairness and trust are two of my core values, but no one's realistically going to promote discrimination and deceit as theirs. So it becomes meaningless. And he finishes off actually by saying that he thinks there's an internal set and an external set. So the answer lies somewhere in the middle of those two. So just to go back then to that earlier point, if we're not going to say that discrimination and deceit are our values, does saying that fairness and trust mean anything at all? Interesting question. I've never been asked that one before.
That's really what I find intriguing about that. And he makes a really great point. Nobody's going to say that discrimination and deceit are their values, right? But their values may be something as simple as, preservation of their family or those kinds of things. And what they perceive as a threat to their family that's how they're going to behave. And so they behave in discriminatory ways because they perceive a threat in a different way than somebody else would. And so that's what's so really intriguing about the whole concept of values. It's the way they apply their behavior to achieve those values that is so intriguing, I guess, but also is what causes the problems. It causes all of the conflicts when we find these disparities between how people try to achieve or approach their values and what values they're actually trying to put into play.
Interesting take on it, John. That's a very, very good point. And again, it goes back to what we were saying about how people define their values. That they might be thinking that they are acting honorably or courageously.
Right. And so let's kind of do a health check on your values, right? And so many companies use the terms of these are our core values, and they put them up there and they put them on a poster and they put them in their hiring, documents and all that. These are the core values of our company. Great. Well, how are they really applying those values? And so let's just talk about, case in point, all the firings in the high tech companies.
What can the tech layoffs teach us about values?
They all have these core values, right? That are, preserving, and core values of family first and good work, life balance, and all of these things that they claim are their values. And yet during the pandemic, all of these high tech companies were seeing an enormous boost in business. And so they hired to those new business models. Now, however, they kind of predicted wrong because they said, this is going to be the way of life going forward. Well, they predicted it wrong because now that people are finding ways to get back to in-person stuff again, and all of a sudden the online stuff is dropping off. And so they're seeing that huge change in their business model. And what are they doing? They're letting people go left and right.
What intrigues me about it as well is that none of them seem to take into account the fact that all nations were having to spend inordinate amount of money that they weren't expecting to spend on fighting COVID. and on PPE, on the vaccine, that the economies were taking a dive in the real world, that people were being furloughed or losing their jobs, and they didn't seem to factor this in. When is the world going to open up again? And what are going to be the economic effects? You would think that they would have asked these questions and been a little bit more careful. Because we talk about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and yet the pandemic ticked 3 of those boxes very clearly in one go. It was volatile, it was uncertain, and it was very complex. And yet it was, I mean, let's just examine what value was driving this, that they saw this this opportunity and they didn't stop to think. Breed.
I was going to say of profit.
You were just waiting for me, weren't you? You wanted me to say it first. And it was money. It was money.
No, absolutely.
It was like, we have a fantastic opportunity to make a lot of money here, regardless of the consequences. We'll deal with that.
Even though they couched it as we're providing jobs for so many people.
Yeah.
Not really. You're putting a bunch of money in your pocket, and the people weren't seeing that. And now that the pendulum has swung the other way, who's suffering for it?
It was a huge gamble. It was a huge gamble. It was just like going to the roulette table and just taking a massive punt, but you're actually playing with people's lives. And you can't really justify it by saying, oh, well, for a couple of years they had a really good job and then it was like, bye-bye. You know, you're dealing with people's emotions. And that lack of compassion and empathy and care, it was really about treating people as numbers. Well, let's just get the people in to our workforce that we need, to meet this demand and to grow as much as we can and to capitalize on this situation. And we did see, not just in the tech industry, but of course we saw a lot of people in the pandemic trying to capitalize from this terrible situation, which was resulting in huge numbers of deaths and distress all over the world.
And now we're in situations where, like I said, the pendulum has swung, and a lot of people are having to be let go from their companies. And what's interesting is that, you know, whenever there's a downsizing in any organization, it's usually referring to, well, you know, we cannot afford to keep you on because it affects our bottom line. So we're looking at all of these companies that are doing this in different ways, and it's quite unique. I mean, you get Elon Musk over at Twitter, who just lets go a bunch of people through email. See ya.
He didn't even sign it. It just had the Twitter logo at the bottom.
Well, at least Zuckerberg signed his.
Yes, he did. He said that he was taking accountability, but he didn't take accountability. And as far as we know, anyway, he hasn't taken a drop in salary. He hasn't taken a drop in stock options and all the other bonuses that he gets. The difference between responsibility and accountability.
You said accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And these folks, somewhere along the line, they took, you know, a leadership class maybe, or they heard or they read something that said that good leaders take responsibility for their actions. And so a lot of them have come forth and say, you know, I made these decisions and I take full responsibility for having made this mistake in the hiring process. I take full So Sundar Pichai at Google said, I take full responsibility for these actions.
Yeah.
And like I said, they have heard somewhere that they should take responsibility and they should publicly claim that responsibility. That's the sign of good leadership. However, somewhere along the line, they kind of missed the whole chapter on accountability. So maybe take a 10% cut in your pay before you take 100% of somebody else's pay away. Just a thought. Little accountability.
Yeah, I know. Well, funnily enough, Zoom, the latest to have announced cuts, and their CEO, Eric Yuan.
Eric Yuan. Yes, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, has said, I take accountability for this, and he has taken a 98% cut in salary.
That is
and
staggering.
He has also written off his bonus as well. Plus, what really impressed me even more is that the leadership team at Zoom are going to take a 20% cut on their base pay, their base salary as well, which I think is really leading the way in terms of how companies should handle this, because why should everybody else suffer? The people who've made the decisions don't get materially touched by it. But at Zoom, we actually have somebody who is not just taking responsibility, but being held personally accountable and is
voluntarily doing so
as well. Yeah,
voluntarily doing so with that, and that just really blows me away. It's just a staggering that somebody would take a 98% pay cut.
I mean, Microsoft are letting go 10,000.
But at the same time, they did a private concert with Sting for their senior leadership. So how did you afford that and still not have enough money to pay those people? I bet you could have paid those people at least 6 months more of salary for what it cost you for that private concert.
Plus, when you look at Google, their most recent returns have shown a $14 billion profit. They're not even making a loss yet. So this, what they're doing is mitigating against any kind of future loss to keep their investors happy, to keep the shareholders happy.
Apparently, $14 billion wasn't valuable enough for them.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. What impressed me about Zoom, just before we kind of wrap up this little segment here, that they're the kind of the baby on the block. And yet they're showing more mature and conscious and responsible leadership, which is what we need to be seeing more of in companies around the world. So I hope they've given some of the other CEOs some food for thought. I also felt very sorry for Zoom in some respects, in that they were really caught on the hop, right? I mean, when you think about the pandemic, you don't think, you don't remember people jumping on Teams or jumping into Google Hangouts. We're all talking about Zoom. Zooming entered really.
Zoom has become a verb.
It became a verb. Zooming, and we're all jumping onto Zoom, and it caught them unawares. I mean, here was this company. I knew about them. I'd been using them since, I think since about 2017 to obviously deliver coaching and training online. And I remember at that time, they were running adverts on commercial radio here in the UK to try and promote themselves, because they were just like a small company, hardly known, outside the
so many people were like, that'll never take off, Then
all of a sudden, pow, overnight, that infrastructure was having to deal with this huge demand. And of course,
the conspiracy theorists are saying that the pandemic was caused by Zoom so that they could boost their. No, I'm kidding. Don't want to start a whole new one.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of exposed the encryption, of course, because they weren't end-to-end encryption, and they were caught out by that. So that's something that was a lesson that they learned about transparency and honesty and being what they said they were, because they were saying they were end-to-end. And I think it turned out that they weren't technically end to end, and they had to address that, and they did address that, and they stepped up the mark and did it very quickly. So you can kind of forgive them in a way, and yet still the CEO is saying, I take responsibility and accountability, and I'm going to forgo my salary. So that's not something that can be said of the old guard, as it were, the more mature companies.
What's interesting is it's always hard when you have to let go large quantities of people. I mean, it just is. And there really is no good way to do it. If anybody is showing the best way to handle it right now, it is Eric Yuan over at Zoom, who is, showing, hey, we're in this together. And I think that's with any kind of an adverse situation. People just want to know that they're not alone in this, or they're not being a victim of it, but that others are also going through this, and even the people at the top. And that makes all the bit of difference. And so I wonder, for our listeners out there, if they've ever gone through a situation where there's been, a mass layoff, or something where you've had to go through a situation like that, or experience a situation like that. How was it handled at your organization, or how did you handle it? How were you impacted by it? I'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, please do. Tell us.
Go to our Linktree site, which is linktr.ee/a show of values. But that's where you can find us on all of the podcast platforms. We're on your favorite podcast platforms. We're out there all over the place. But you can also find ways to reach us via email, via voicemail. We'd love, and all the social media channels as well. So, let us hear from you about this kind of a situation where there had to be massive layoffs, and how did you deal with it? How was it handled? Was there empathy involved? Was there responsibility and accountability? We want to hear your stories, so please share them with us.
Yep. Once again, that is linktr.ee/a show of values. All one word.
Sounds great.
Good.
Let's talk about candy.
I had a funny feeling you were going to say that.
We call this segment Versus. Do you want to tell them what this is all about?
Okay, we're going to end each show with a wacky story. That is values based. Of course, everything that we talk about is values based and values driven. We're always going to bring out the values in the story, and you will get the chance to vote on which you think is the best, John's or mine.
Yep, you know how to reach us now. We want to know, who wins from this show. Is it Annalieza or is it John? And I'm going to start things off. Sorry, not doing ladies first this time, because we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is chocolate, and specifically M&Ms.
Yes.
Now, I know you've probably heard about this by now, but there's an interesting controversy that has come up in the world, and it's an uproar over changing the attire of the green female M&M cartoon character, the spokes candies, so to speak. But the green M&M was the female, and she traditionally has worn, until recently, GoGo Boots. And in order to modernize just a little bit, the Mars company changed her GoGo Boots to more modern, sneakers, workout shoes. And people went nuts. They said, this is crazy. She's not sexy anymore. I have no words. I don't understand how a cartoon piece of candy is sexy. So
I know it is a little bit worrying. I have to say that there could be so much controversy and so much polarization, which I think is what the makers of M&Ms actually did say as well, is that they didn't expect it to be so polarizing. But what stunned me is that because of this, they've gone and completely just pulled all their spokespeople. Yes. Why pull them all? I don't know.
Well, because, in their values are that their candy is supposed to be for everyone to enjoy. And suddenly finding the notion of whether or not they're spokes candy is sexy or not was disturbing to them. So they said, we're just going to stop using it. We'll go to something else because we don't want this kind of controversy. Yeah, we can put GoGo Boots back on the candy, but what's going to happen next? Are they going to complain about the color, that we chose the green M&M to be the female instead of the red M&M to be the female? And, God forbid we change to the purple M&M to be the female. And, now we need to, don't forget, we have to allow for transgender. So, let's just not go there. Let's just stop it. And they just completely put a pause on their whole spokes candy campaign.
Tucker Carlson of Fox News. Yeah, he was one of the people who was complaining about it. He said on his show that M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any of them. Who thinks like that about candy characters, for goodness sake? Who thinks like... Well, obviously Tucker Carlson, right?
Tucker Carlson does. Yes, apparently he wants to.
I wouldn't mind having a drink with that cartoon character. Well, I wouldn't want to have a drink with that one.
I would hate to hear what he had to say about Jessica Rabbit.
What a fox!
Vote for John this week if you like the M&M story.
My contender then is about duck therapy for convicted gang members. Convicted gang members in a category B prison. These are really serious offenders. They are being introduced to ducks as part of the prison's pet assisted therapy plan. So bosses are hoping that the humane approach of introducing pets to prison life may help to speed up prisoner reform. The jail's Muscovy ducks, which came from a rescue centre, have their own pond and a wooden shelter near the perimeter wall. It has been proven at other prisons to work. And, although on the face of it, it made me laugh when I first read it. And I thought, this is just so wacky. I thought I'd actually heard
it quacks me up.
Yeah, absolutely. As Thor said, at first we thought it was a joke because one of the ducks has even been named Crispy.
Oh.
Retired chief superintendent said of the duck scheme, it's quackers. It's got to be a joke. Prison is a place of punishment and hopefully some rehabilitation, but I don't see how duck therapy is going to make things any better. But a Serco prison director at HMP Dovegate said that we're delighted that this very positive IMB report highlighted we provide lots of animal related activities such as the ducks in the garden and the Restart Dogs project, which provides prisoners with purposeful activities and helps to support rehabilitation. And I was thinking, that actually, talking about values, and putting the prisoners in charge of something, making them responsible for something, getting them to nurture other lives, be it ducks or dogs or whatever it might be, or tending to the gardens at the prison, could really just, I suppose, nurture and cultivate those feelings of compassion that might be missing. Those humane feelings that they, for whatever reason, might have had knocked out of them at some point in their lives. Who knows why people do what they do, but it
brings back compassion and like you said, responsibility and care and nurturing back into their lives, and it very well could make a huge difference.
So having laughed at it initially, I'm giving it a bit of a round of applause because why not? Surely you would try anything to try and turn these very hard, very dangerous offenders around, to try to rehabilitate them before hopefully they will come out of prison and turn their lives around in some way.
become a bird of the feather. Instead of joining a gang, we'll join a new flock.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm just winging it.
Oh no, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll send you a bill.
You've been preparing this, haven't you, John?
The concept just nested in my head for a moment there.
Oh, come on, you just.
But I didn't want to. I didn't want to lay an egg. Vote on which is the best story of the week. Was it the ducks or was it the M&Ms? Vote for your favorite. Visit us on Linktree, which is linktr.ee/a show of values. And you can find us on all of your favorite podcast channels, on just about all of the social media channels. Our email, there's a voicemail phone number there, lots of ways to reach us.
And remember, don't undervalue the power of values.
And don't undervalue the value of values.